Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to tell you about the main differences between service dogs, which is Buddy, therapy dogs, and emotional support animals, or ESAs. Each type of working dog has different roles that it plays in order to help the human that it's with. Because they have different roles, they have different training, and therefore they have different rights when it comes to the public. I'll tell you the definition of each type of working dog, the roles that they play, some of the training and certification information, and what kinds of rights they have here in the United States. If you're from a different country, your rules probably vary. Buddy here is a service animal. Service animals are either dogs or miniature horses, and they are specifically trained to mitigate some aspect of their handler's disability. In some places, service dogs are also called assistance dogs. Service dog handlers need to abide by the laws set by the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA. Per the ADA, a service dog must be task trained in order to mitigate part of their handler's disability. That also requires that the handler has a disability based on the ADA's definition of a disability. Are you gonna yawn through the whole video? You know what's not boring is Cheetos. There you go. Because of their high levels of training, service dogs are granted public access rights. That means that they're allowed anywhere that the general public is allowed to go, for the most part. There are a couple of exceptions. There are lots of different types of service dogs, like guide dogs for the blind, hearing or signal dogs for those who are hard of hearing or deaf, medical alert dogs, which is what Buddy is. Buddy is my medical alert dog. There are autism assistance dogs for those who are autistic, allergen alert dogs to see if there are allergens in your food, and psychiatric service dogs for people with things like PTSD. And that is not an exhaustive list. What sets service dogs apart from the other working dogs is their training. Service dogs are not only task trained to help their human with a disability, they're also public access trained to make sure that they can handle being in the general public and they won't misbehave. Service dogs don't necessarily have to be trained by a professional. For example, Buddy is owner trained. I'm the one who trained him, even though I don't have any certifications. And there are no certifications that are required in order to register him as a service dog. In the United States, we don't have a service dog registry or any kind of formal requirement that's needed before your dog is a service dog. The ADA really only requires that the dog is under the control of the handler. But outside of that, there aren't super strict concrete rules that are legally required of service dogs. That said, if your service dog is going to be in public with people, they should be a good citizen. And there is a sort of canine good citizen test and a public access test that are recommended but not required if you want your service dog to be out in the general public. What's going on, Bubs? Do you have something to tell me? Yeah, this might be a migraine alert. Oh, heart rate. Thank you. Good check. Service dog, task trained. Alerting me is a task. He is specifically trained only for me. I'm his only handler. This is an excellent segue for therapy dog. Therapy dog is typically someone's pet that went through a certification process in order to become a therapy dog. And a therapy dog is one of the dogs that goes to hospitals, community centers, schools, etc. in order to get lots of pets from the people who are there. Okay, all right, honey, I need to be able to also be on the camera if you can. What are you doing? Therapy dogs are not task trained in order to help an individual. Rather, they're trained to be extra social and be able to go get pets from a lot of strangers. When I tried to look up the requirements for training a therapy dog, for certifying a therapy dog, I had a heck of a time because all of these terms are so improperly interchanged online that all of the articles and stuff that showed up were about service dogs or about ESAs, emotional support animals. I was having a really hard time finding things that were actually specifically about therapy dogs by the legal definition of a therapy dog. So that was really disheartening to see, and even more reason why I needed to make this video now. Emotional support animals, or ESAs, don't need to be just a dog or a miniature horse. They can be all sorts of different types of animals. It can be a cat, a bunny, a turtle, a parrot, a dog. And their sole purpose is to provide emotional support to their human. Yeah, you do that, don't you? but you're not an ESA. Okay, thank you. That's a migraine alert. Yeah. Hey, what's up, buddy? Meerkat. Good boy. This way. Get down this way. Good. Thank you. Okay. All right, you're just gonna hang out here. Thank you. Good boy. Even though emotional support animals play a very important role for their humans, they're not required to go through any specific training, so they're not granted any public access rights. In order to qualify for an emotional support animal, you need a doctor's note. I'm not sure exactly what the requirements for the doctor are, but it requires a doctor's note to get your ESA approval. With an ESA approval letter from a doctor, an emotional support animal is allowed in housing that doesn't usually allow pets, and also in the cabin of aircraft carriers. However, this is the change for 2021. Starting in, I think it was mid-January of 2021, ESAs are no longer protected under the DOT, the Department of Transportation, which means that airlines are now able to make their own rules regarding ESAs in the cabin of aircraft carriers. In response, many airlines did decide to remove their ESA protections, and while that is a horrible loss for the ESA community, it's a big win for the service dog community. And let me explain. Buddy, can you sit? Oh, good buds. I definitely don't want to downplay the importance of emotional support animals. They make a huge difference to the people who they serve. However, they do not go through the rigorous training that service dogs do in order to know how to behave in public. So a lot of airlines were having trouble with emotional support animals wreaking havoc in their airline carriers because they're simply not trained to handle that kind of stressful situation. Service dogs go through years of training in order to handle the crazy amounts of stimulation that happen when you're in public. Emotional support animals don't go through that. So in my eyes, as a service dog handler, I am now relieved when I think about flying with Betty, because I know that any dog that is in the cabin will have gone through the strict training that a service dog requires. I will say though, I am 100% on board with ESAs being on board if they are also well trained and know how to behave if there are other dogs or other animals on the aircraft. Having untrained animals in public or on airlines is very dangerous to service dogs and service dog handlers. And since service dogs mitigate a disability for their handler, a lot of handlers are in a lot of trouble if they don't have their service dog with them, or if for some reason their service dog has to wash or become retired early due to behavioral problems. And I know it doesn't seem like an ESA would be able to cause a behavior problem in a service dog, but if an ESA is misbehaved or if a service dog is improperly trained, then those dogs could be aggressive toward a service dog in public, and that could cause that service dog to become aggressive or reactive in response. It's really hard to train those behaviors back out of a dog once they have them. Buddy, you're being very annoying. And that's really the only reason why I personally am happy about this new change to the law. That said, and definitely worth reiterating, I do think it's a huge loss to the emotional support animal community, and I think it's really important that they also have rights to be able to bring their animals onto an aircraft or wherever they need them to be. So I hope that in the future we're able to come up with training requirements and some more consistent guidelines so that everybody, not just service dog handlers, but also ESA handlers, can have their dog in the times when they need them so that they can feel comfortable when they're traveling. Ditch him, Buddy, because he's getting a little bit crazy, and I need to raise this now because he's not here. Okay, so that is service dog, therapy dog, ESA. Service dog, single handler, lots of training. Therapy dog, single handler, lots of clients, also highly trained, but very different training from a service dog. And then ESA, again, single person, but no training requirements, and just some rights in terms of housing and airlines. Oh my gosh, I got a hair. I wonder whose hair that is. Thanks, Buddy. You may have also heard the term working dog. Working dog can refer to a whole bunch of different things. It can mean a sheep herding dog. It can mean a detection dog for drugs, for explosives, for cancer. You can also have police canines, the mall cop dogs, or you can have search and rescue dogs. I mean, there are lots of things that dogs do for humans. We don't deserve them. And depending who you ask about the definition of a working dog, some people do also lump them in with guide dogs, medical alert dogs, and other working service animals. Now I'm going to go through a bunch of scenarios or statements and let you know whether they apply to service animals, therapy animals, or emotional support animals. Which dog is trained a specific task or behavior to help a person with a disability? That would be a service dog and neither of the others. Which of them provides emotional support to comfort people? Well, service dogs do that for their handlers, even though that's not technically a specific task. Therapy dogs provide emotional support to a bunch of different people, whoever it is that they're visiting, wherever they're visiting. And emotional support animals, that is their main job, is to provide comfort to their person. So all of them technically do, but for therapy dogs and emotional support animals, that is their sole purpose. There are also psychiatric service dogs that sort of bridge the gap between those and service animals. ESA stands for emotional support animal, not emotional service animal. So if you hear emotional service animal, that might be referring to an ESA for emotional support, but it might also be referring to a psychiatric service dog. PSDs actually count 100% as regular service dogs. There should never actually be a distinction made between the two. Psych service dogs are legitimate service dogs. Emotional support animals, very different. Not task trained, not public access trained. Psych service dogs get the same service dog training, they have tasks for their handler, and they get public access trained. I hope I've made the distinction clear. Which of these dogs, when in public, displays very good behavior and is comfortable with a variety of people, situations, and experiences? I hope you realize by now that that definitely fits the bill for a service dog, and it's also the case for a therapy dog. Therapy dogs need to be able to go into community centers and hospitals and schools and not act out when they're in those public places. In fact, they're supposed to do the opposite. They're supposed to be a calming presence for the people who they're helping. By contrast, ESAs, emotional support animals, don't need to display those kinds of behaviors in public. That segues perfectly into the next point, which is, which of these dogs is allowed in the cabin of an airline? Service dogs are definitely allowed, and up until 2021, emotional support animals were as well. Out of the main 3 dogs that we've been talking about, service dog, therapy dog, and emotional support animal, service dogs are the only ones that require specialized and intensive training. And that is why they are granted such extensive public access rights. They're the only ones that are protected by the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the ADA. Last but not least, the issue of registration or certification. For service dogs in the United States, there is no required service dog registry, and there's no certification process. There are legitimate certifications that you can get from your training program, where, they certify that the dog has graduated from their program. However, none of these are required in order to get your public access rights. There are registries online, but in general they're seen as scams and are very frowned upon in the service dog community. The reason being, if one service dog handler comes in and has an ID for their service dog, then those employees may assume that the next service dog handler coming in will also have an ID. But since they're not legally required, not everybody has them. And some people having them makes it more likely that people who don't have them are going to be asked for them. So in general, in the community, it's frowned upon to do anything with registration, certification, ID cards, that kind of thing, unless they are generically educational ID cards, not ID cards that are, here's Buddy and he's a service dog. Emotional support animals also don't technically get certified or registered, but you do need a doctor's note if you want to take advantage of things like housing and airline privileges that come with having an ESA. And honestly, I tried to find the same information for therapy dogs online, but the terms therapy dog, service dog, and emotional support dog are so often incorrectly interchanged online that all of the search results that I was finding were about emotional support dogs and service dogs and not actually about therapy dogs. Therapy dogs are really not my specialty, so if you know information about them, please drop that in the comments. If you have any questions for me, you can always drop those in the comments, or as always, if you have clarifications that you wish I had made, please put those down there too, because I'm probably also sitting here wishing that I had remembered to say them while I was filming. Thanks for watching till the end. You rock, and I will see you guys next week on Friday with another video, and possibly on Tuesday with a surprise upload that you're only going to know about if you actually watch to the end. Shh. Bye, guys.